Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting for February 24th, 2025. The recommendation is that the meeting start at 7 p.m. and be called to order. May I have a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favour? That carries unanimously. And I'll turn it over to Councillor Wilkinson for our land acknowledgement, please.
Thank you. We have gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need, leave enough for others, and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant in the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We do have some correspondence that have been added to the agenda, and the recommendation is that the agenda as presented for February 24th, 2025 be adopted as amended. May I have a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. All those in favour? And that carries unanimously. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening, councillors? Okay, seeing none. We do have our minutes from the January 27th meeting from our regular council meeting and the February 3rd Committee of the Whole meeting. The recommendation is that they be adopted as presented. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. All those in favour? That carries unanimously. This evening we have no presentations and no delegations. Did anybody want to pull any correspondence items this evening? Seeing none. We do have consent agenda items. I'd like to remind if councillors would like to remove any items, please indicate so now. I will be removing 12.3, but does anybody have any other items that they would like to see removed? Okay, seeing none. I just wanted to give a quick update, continuation on 12.3, which is the Veterans Decorative Crosswalk. Wanted to let you know that I have connected with regional staff who said that they are continuing to work with our staff, and it looks like, I'm not making promises, but looks like it's going to be a positive outcome that's going to be made. So I just wanted to provide that update based off of our chat last meeting. With that, any other consent agenda items, comments, or questions? Seeing none, the recommendation is that items 12.1, 12.2, and 12.3 be approved. May I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favour? That carries unanimously. On to our report for this evening, and this is the sign bylaw variance. So the recommendation is that council approve a variance to the township sign bylaw as it applies to the billboard sign location at 374 Hamilton Road, New Hamburg, to increase the maximum allowable percentage of non-Wilmot based content from 20% to 15% to 50% of the total sign face, subject to the following conditions to be noted on the billboard approval. 1, if all billboard spaces are occupied and a Wilmot-based business or businesses request to be located on the billboard, the first available vacancies be available to the Wilmot business or businesses prior to the installation of any additional non-Wilmot content. And 2, if a Wilmot-based business has requested to advertise on the billboard, no contracts for advertisements on the billboard from non-Wilmot-based content be renewed until such time that the Wilmot-based business can be accommodated on the billboard. To get this on the floor, may I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Cressman, and I will invite our Manager of Planning and Economic Development, Andrew Martin, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Mayor Solomon. So basically this is just a follow-up to our report at Committee of the Whole. Council had asked questions about opportunities to promote the Wilmot-based content, and we did have conversations with the billboard company to look at options. One of the options we were asked to consider was whether we could have the renewal of contracts with the billboard company align with the township's review annually. And unfortunately, just the terms of those renewals doesn't really accommodate that, but we did have a conversation with the billboard company, and the recommendation as worded is reflective of that conversation and something that they're comfortable with, and we feel does get to the point of ensuring that Wilmot is the priority for advertising, but if there's no wait list, then we might as well fill the sign with other companies. So I'll leave my comments at that.
Thank you very much, Manager Martin. Are there any questions, councillors? Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, not a question, but just happy to see I think the second clause in there basically indicating that if a wait list should form or someone from Wilmot wants to advertise on the billboard, then essentially they won't be allowed or to renew a non-Wilmot business, right? So I think in general, I think that addresses what my concern was, but seems straightforward from here.
Any other comments or questions, councillors? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. The next motion is for our bylaws, and the recommendation is that bylaws as attached to this agenda be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed in open council. May I have a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Wilkinson, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. And we do have 3 notices of motion this evening. Our first one is 15.1, and this is Councillor Wilkinson's notice of motion regarding governance policy HR-001, hiring and termination of employees. I will invite Councillor Wilkinson to introduce their motion.
Thank you. Through the chair, pretty straightforward. I mean, I'm looking to gather information here, and I mean, as we just finished the budget conversation, sort of reviewing and looking inward at our workforce as well as where we're utilizing resources and staff. What I'm asking for here is that we basically get HR to come back and report back to us with a policy that will basically outline and determine what will happen if someone should be terminated or someone should leave and a position becomes vacant for whatever reason. So very similar to where a new request would be put forward for hiring, this will simply put in place that if a position should become vacant, the appropriate department or manager needs to basically prepare a justification, come back to council, and then we can review and look at it. Right? I think it just comes with general good governance and oversight for us to be reviewing what positions we have, and I would anticipate a lot of them to be operational and of value to the taxpayer. So, you know, just sort of looking for an update to this policy, and then also making sure that we can continue to oversee and make sure that we're keeping an appropriate level of staffing. So hopefully we can get this put across and get a report back, and then have a further discussion in April.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there a seconder for this motion for information? Okay. I know it's probably not going to change the vote, but I would move that if Councillor Martin, you're willing to be chair so that I can second the motion, if you're open to that. Okay. So I will turn it over.
So is there a seconder for this motion? All right. Mayor Salonen has seconded the motion. Are there any questions? Yes?
If I could just speak to it. Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Chair. This is weird. Okay. Through you, Chair. I'm interested in certainly getting a report back, and in speaking with Acting CAO Clark this morning in our meeting, we did discuss that the policy certainly has room for improvement. So I think having staff report back, do an update on what our current process is could be very informative, as well as, yes, coming out of some of the questions I had over the vacancies at budget. I think that this information could be useful in terms of more efficiencies going forward, and I'm certainly interested in getting that information from staff and seeing what decisions we make going forward on it. So that's why I'm in support of this motion. I just wanted to share.
Councillor Cressman?
Yes, through you, Chairman Martin. I was interested, and I wasn't clear if this is passed, then every position that becomes vacant would be considered open until endorsed by council to have it filled. Am I reading this properly?
So through the chair, I in essence was looking for saying, yes, if something becomes vacant, a justification needs to come back to council in order to basically review the position, right? So looking for justification and reasons why we would need to keep this higher and whatnot, it in essence just allows us to have further insight into the staffing levels and the service levels that we're providing. I'm not suggesting that that would be the final outcome of the policy. again, the way I've worded it here is that it would be directing staff to come back with a report, but we're looking at a municipal scan of policies to make sure that we're falling in line with some of our comparators and peers, but then also maybe reviewing our HR policy as it stands right now to include some of these things. Are there potential pitfalls for operational problems? I suppose, but I would suspect that that would be addressed in a staff report before we even look at adopting the policy. This is just sort of a general kick to get it moving. Does that answer your question?
I guess I'm still a little confused whether this just gets it kick-started as compared to implementing a policy that may leave positions open for several months, because we have a committee of the whole, we have the decision-making, we need time to do a municipal scan, and then we need an opportunity for justification. I can see a timeline that would mean, even if it was justified, that a position couldn't be filled for 3 to 4 months from start to finish.
Mayor Salonen first, and then Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just to add more clarification, and I did reconfirm with Clerk Boss to make sure I'm not interpreting this incorrectly, but tonight, should Council decide to approve this, it would not change any practice or process that we have right now. It's that staff's report would include this type of information, what those outcomes could look like should we go down that process. If that clears up what you were asking, Councillor Cressman. If this is approved right now, it's just that that's the information that they'll bring back, and it's still fully Council's decision then at a later time how we choose to implement.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you. Through the chair, in essence, that's it, right? This is not setting forth a policy, but rather looking for information to help inform this. My understanding is this particular policy is due for review, looking to supplement it and just basically saying that the information we're asking for to come back is a municipal scan of the hiring and termination policies of others, but then looking at saying, is it feasible that we could review every staff position that becomes vacant and then look at, can we ask for justifications for these roles? If we get the information back, and I mean, this becomes too much of a burden or just not feasible, then by all means, I'd be open to reviewing the policy that comes back and with the information, and we could make changes at that time. But this is really just asking for information and suggesting that this is information I'm looking for.
Councillor Cressman.
Yes, through you, Chair Martin. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is I'm certainly interested in getting information back. I'm not necessarily looking at having a policy put in place that would have to have a vote to rescind it in case we find the report indicates that it is onerous or doesn't make sense. So I guess that's where I'm looking at here and saying, if this is for information only about a policy like this, I would see myself able to support it, and the policy would rise or fall based on the information that would be presented back to Council.
Now, I see Councillor Dunstall, but I also see Clerk Boss is wanting to, so did you want to speak first, Clerk Boss? Is that?
Yeah, through you, Chair Martin. There is an existing governance policy related to this matter, so this would be reporting back for information on any changes. At that time, the Committee of the Whole would review any of the changes and subsequently approve or defeat any changes. So yeah, just to clarify, there is a governance policy already in place on this matter.
Thank you, Clerk Boss. Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I actually believe that the next motion, which should be mine, should take care of some of the things that Councillor Wilkinson was concerned about, such as I think that for me, this would probably be a no, and I'm assuming or hoping that my motion goes through and these things will be covered by staff and by the CAO.
Okay, I have a couple of thoughts and a question as well, but is there anybody else that is wanting to speak on this? So I'm not sure if this is a fair question for you, Acting CAO Clark, or not, because and I realize I didn't ask you this question before our meeting, so I didn't give you time to prepare on that. I'm just curious, the way this motion is worded, and I realize, Clerk Boss, you're saying there is a governance policy already, but according to the way the way I read this motion, it gives direction in terms of coming back with how the report should read. And so that would be worrisome for me. I don't know if there could be an amendment, but then there's also Councillor Dunstall's motion. So my question to Acting CAO Clark is, does this compare to other municipalities? Are you aware of other municipalities that would have a policy that would be similar to what this motion is asking for?
To you, Chair. I don't want to presuppose what others may be doing. In my experience at other municipalities, I haven't seen positions come back as they become vacant, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. To your question about the recommendation, the way that staff view this is that if it were to pass, we would bring back that scan of our comparators. We would put together best practice. We would, recommend certain amendments or changes to the existing policy. As Clerk Boss mentioned, there is an existing policy that deals with how we fill vacancies and the processes we go through. And in that report...
Excuse me, could I ask that we have quiet in the gallery? I mean, I realize if you want to confer, you could go out, but...
Just ask a quick question. Is there any delegates speaking tonight on...
There...
Zero delegates. Okay. You're all right.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead.
So, as I was saying, we would bring back what best practice is. We would bring back a list of recommendations to amendments to the policy. We would also bring back language related to that section regarding recommendations. So how it may align with best practices, how it may not align with best practices, what council's options to consider were, and also I think as Councillor Wilkinson mentioned, some of the risks, pros, cons of type of thing. So it's fair in that the work could add value to the policy, and I do think one thing to be clear too, this policy does include council already, so it does need to come back to council for approval, because when we talk about CIO and director positions, that involves council, so this is a council approved policy, and so it is fair to have it come back to council.
Okay, thank you, Acting CEO Clark. Are there any other questions, comments? Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I just want to make sure that I understand this. So this is for information purposes, really. It's coming back with a report to let us know what's going on out there in other municipalities, comparative municipalities. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So do I see us ready to ask the question? Okay, so all those in favor of this motion? So that is 2-4. It's carried. I'm opposed, but it's carried.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin, for jumping in there. We will now move on to report 15.2, which is Councillor Dunstall's notice of motion regarding lean government, and I will turn it over to Councillor Dunstall to introduce.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. This actually came about from one of Councillor Wilkinson's constituents who attended the Ward 4 Town Hall, and he brought up Six Sigma, which is a methodology that's prevalent in the manufacturing field, which I'm familiar with. And he asked to meet, and we met for a couple of hours, and there was a lot of interesting things there. And I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if the government had something similar? And so I did some research, and lo and behold, there is. It's called Lean Government, and it reduces waste and redundancy while enhancing service delivery, and has been successfully implemented in Toronto, Mississauga, Hamilton, and Peterborough. And it concentrates on cost savings, again, redundancy, improved services, accountability. And I have heard there needs to be a culture change, and Lean Government sets the stage for a culture shift, encouraging employees by fostering a culture of innovation and openness to change. Collaboration, engagement increase. So what I'm asking is that staff go back and provide us a report. I'm hoping for a meeting of the whole in April to tell us what it would cost, what it would be to implement, and what the process would be. Thank you.
Just want to clarify, Councillor, your motion says June, so just want to clarify on what date you were hoping for.
Okay, June's fine. June's fine.
Okay. Is there a seconder for Councillor Dunstall's motion? Seconded by Councillor Cressman. Any questions or comments at this time, councillors? Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, I just think in general this is an excellent idea. One that I know I've tried to bring forward a couple enhancements myself in the past through KPIs or standard reporting processes. I think this will potentially address some of those as well. But just in general, I don't think it hurts to look lean and review some of these policies. So we'll be supporting.
Any other questions? Councillor Martin?
Through you, Mayor Salonen, I guess I'm looking at the possible similarities between this motion and the previous motion that was approved. The previous one is asking for the report to come back in April to the Committee of the Whole. This is asking for Committee of the Whole in June. I realize we've already approved the previous motion. Is there any way of combining this? I don't know if this is asking for staff to do work twice, or is there enough? Oh, I see you shaking your head no. So you would see enough differences, Acting CEO Clerk?
Yes, this motion is looking at a different methodology that looks at a whole corporate-wide approach to finding efficiencies and cost savings, and so I think this is a separate entity from the HR policy.
Any other comments or questions, councillors? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favour? And that carries unanimously. Now I will again invite Councillor Martin to chair and go on to 15.3.
Thank you, Mayor Salonen. This one I'm more ready for. The other one caught me off guard. So I invite Mayor Salonen to introduce their notice of motion.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair. So this motion has, I'm assuming you've all read it, but it's in relation to the U.S. tariff threat that we have coming towards us. And really, we're seeing all of the other regional municipalities putting forward similar motions that are essentially directing Waterloo EDC and Best WR to be looking into how we can address this in our community. Of course, appreciating that tariffs are federal level. Provincially, we're also seeing work being done, but this is what the resources that we have to be able to help support our businesses and community that'll be impacted if these do actually go into place. So I'm looking for support of that, as well as I do want to make note, because I had a few residents reach out, hoping that there was a particular line about agriculture. In case you weren't aware, we did pass a very similar motion to this at Regional Council the other week, and I did actually advocate that we put in a line directing to have Waterloo EDC and Best WR explicitly look at agriculture, and that motion did pass. So I felt it was a little bit redundant, as that direction has already been given to the group that this is going to be going to. So just to explain for those who are wondering why the word agriculture was missing, it's not an oversight, it's more so I felt it was a bit redundant to keep in there. But anyways, without babbling on, that's what I'm hoping to get support from tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Salonen. May I have a seconder for Mayor Salonen's notice of motion? Councillor Wilkinson. Are there questions? Councillor Dunstall, do you have a question?
Actually, I just wanted to make a comment. I attended a council meeting. I'm in New Brunswick and coming home tomorrow, but I attended a council meeting here. It's a very small town, and they brought this motion forward as well. And one of them made a comment that I hadn't actually considered before, and what he said was that there were companies that were, perhaps the parent company was US-based, that has employees that live in that town. And so we also have to be careful that we're not putting our people out of work. So that was just something I actually hadn't even thought of, but I thought I would mention it here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dunstall, and I'm not sure what you would do in this case, Mayor Sallin, but I mean, my thought in response to Councillor Dunstall's comment is that's a very good point. So I'm not sure as chair if you would comment. I'll have to pay more attention if you comment on everybody else's comments. I think maybe not. But I agree. I think we have to be careful about our local businesses that may be U.S. owned. It's so complicated, this issue. Are there other questions, comments about this? Councillor Cressman.
Yes, looking at agriculture, each agriculture commodity really faces different challenges because of supply management in dairy and poultry. Their market is primarily Canadian, with small exception moving to the world. The pork and beef industry is quite dramatically different. Every week, at least 20,000 market hogs have to move, or 22,000 have to move out of province. A good portion of them move into southern Michigan to a plant. And if a 25% tariff applies to them, they're going to be looking at least $65 discount per hog. So the beef industry is very fluid across the border as well. Cattle move south, beef moves north. So this can be extremely disruptive, and we all know about the car parts, Linamar and others who have parts that cross the border 6 or 7 times prior to assembly into an automobile. So I agree and will be supporting this motion, but it is quite a complex issue, and to untangle the connections and export markets that have been formed over decades when faced with, I better watch my words very carefully, based on what may appear to be somewhat less than reliable facts, then I will be supporting it, but I think it is a challenge in the short run.
Thank you, Councillor Cressman. Other comments, questions? Councillor Wilkinson?
Through the chair, I'll be brief. I mean, literally in between our meetings today, I saw a news report that essentially the tariffs appear to be moving forward at the end of the month. So, well, a challenging topic, and you know, one that can have a variety of impacts on the businesses that operate here. I think it makes good sense that you know, we need to find ways to work together and diversify the organizations within Canada and make sure that we're supporting our Canadian industries as best we can. So I look at this and I see just in the good spirit of it and what we're trying to achieve, I will be supporting it. You know, I really feel for everyone affected by what's transpiring at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin, for jumping in quite a few times today to help chair. Very much appreciated. On to announcements. Do bear with me as there are quite a few to get through this evening, but Black History Month is observed in February in Ontario and across Canada to recognize and celebrate the contributions of history and culture of Black Canadians. It is a time to acknowledge the struggles, achievement, and resilience of Black communities, both historically and in present day. The annual Coldest Night of the Year event took place over the weekend in New Hamburg with all the proceeds in support of the Wilmot Family Resource Centre. Thank you to all the participants, donors, volunteers, and sponsors who came together to address poverty and support folks experiencing homelessness. Pink Shirt Day is this Wednesday, February 26th. The mission of the day is to create a more kind, inclusive world by raising awareness and funds for anti-bullying initiatives. Pink Shirt Day started in a small town in Nova Scotia and is a great reminder about the national impact we can have right here in our small town, Ontario. Ontario's election is this Thursday, February 27th. Registered voters should have received their voter information card in the mail detailing when and where you should vote. When you do go to vote, be sure to bring your voter information card and a piece of acceptable ID like a driver's license or health card. It is important to note that voter information cards are not required to vote, and you can find out your voting locations on Elections Ontario's website, as well as eligible voters can register in person, both on election day or at the old Murray's Clothing Store in New Hamburg is the Elections Ontario office for all of Wilmot. So you can also go in there in person and vote before election day. Just be sure to bring some government ID with you showing your name and address. And I'm not, yes, like I said, that information hopefully should be in your mailboxes, but just wanted to do a reminder to everyone that that is this week. Pickleball will not be offered at the St. Agatha Community Centre on Wednesday, February 26th from 6 to 9, nor on Thursday, February 27th from 1 to 3 or 6 to 9 due to accommodating the provincial election in that facility. And more information about pickleball, you can visit wilmot.ca/programs. Wilmot Fire is reminding residents to remove snow around vents outside of your home. Blocked vents can cause a buildup of carbon monoxide, which is a colorless, odorless gas that can be lethal at high levels. Including around your dryer vent is a really important one, as that can start dryer fires in your home as well. But you can also visit wilmot.ca/fire safety tips for more information. Almost done. Wilmot's Community Services Department will be hosting a meeting for special event organizing groups and affiliated groups on Wednesday, March 5th at 7 p.m. at the Wilmot Rec Complex on the second floor at the Community Centre. The purpose of this information night will be to provide information and updates on the special events process and the affiliation policy. The evening will be split into two sessions. The special events session will be for the first hour, followed by a short break to provide time for those who are only involved in special events to depart, and any affiliated groups can join at 8 p.m. Affiliated groups include any community groups, service clubs, minor sporting organizations, etc., who receive council-approved discounts on facility rentals. And the second community gathering for the Prime Minister's Path Engagement Project is coming up on March 5th from 4:30 to 8 p.m. at the New Hamburg Community Centre, and the theme is Collective Reflections, Community Input on Proposed Working Group Recommendations. You can RSVP via Eventbrite. It is a free event that just gives us more of an estimate on how many people are coming. And you can also RSVP by emailing pmp@wilmot.ca, or you can always just show up if you're able to make it that evening. Those are all of my announcements. Councillor Martin, I believe you had some comments?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Salonen. And just to follow up on two of your announcements, this being Black History Month, I decided to wear a shirt today in honor of that. And I know that we didn't have many events in Wilmot Township. There was one yesterday at my church at Zion United, focusing on Black History Month, which I was pleased about. I missed the Canadian Caribbean Association of Waterloo Regions event this year. I was at the previous 2 years. That's a great organization, but just wanted to make mention again to Black History Month. The coldest night of the year was very successful. I was there walking and also a marshal on the route. And there is still time to donate. In fact, Councillor Cressman donated today, and there's others that can keep on donating, I think, till the end of March. So there's time to still add to that fund that goes to the Wilmot Family Resource Centre.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Cressman.
Yes, I want to bring your attention to the Newton Board of Trade pancake breakfast on Sunday, March 16th. I believe it starts at 10:30. I'm not sure the exact dollar amount for adults or children, but you'll have pancakes, scrambled eggs, sausage, and orange juice and coffee. So that's Sunday, March the 16th at the New Dundee Community Centre.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Cressman. Any other announcements? Oh, Councillor Dunstall, I see your hand up there.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that the New Hampshire Board of Trade, either it's currently going on or will have gone on, the candidates meeting this evening. And for those who were so enthralled with our meetings and did not catch that, you can catch it on the New Hamburg Board of Trade Facebook page. It was taped, so you can go back there and watch it at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other announcements? Seeing none, we do have business arising from closed, and the recommendation is that Council appoint Brian Roth to the Wilmot Canada Day Event Task Force for a term expiring December 31st of 2026. May I have a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. Comments or questions, councillors? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. May I have a mover and a seconder for our confirmatory bylaw? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. And adjournment. Moved by Councillor Cressman, seconded by Councillor Dunstall. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you and have a great evening, everyone.